My name is Rebecca Hart, and I'm 42 years old. Last Tuesday at 6:47 p.m., my doorbell rang and destroyed everything I thought I'd escaped. I was standing in my Seattle penthouse kitchen, still in my work clothes from the office, when the security camera alert lit up my phone. Two figures stood at my front door, gray hair, expensive coats, holding manila folders. It took me 3 full seconds to recognize them. 25 years. That's how long it had been since I'd seen my parents' faces. 25 years since my father threw my suitcase onto our front lawn and told me never to come back. 25 years since my mother stood silent in the doorway while rain soaked through my clothes and I had nowhere to go, that I was 17 then, pregnant and broke. I'm 42 now, CEO of a tech company worth 9 figures, and they were standing at my door like no time had passed at all. My hand shook as I set down my wine glass. Through the camera feed, I watched my father adjust his tie. My mother clutched a leather portfolio against her chest. They looked older, smaller somehow, but that same rigid posture remained. The posture that said they were right and the world would bend to prove it, that I should have closed the app, should have called security to remove them from the property, should have done anything except what I did. I opened the door. Rebecca. My father's voice carried that familiar authority, like he still had the right to speak my name. We need to talk. My mother's eyes swept over my marble entryway, the original artwork on the walls, the crystal chandelier I'd bought at auction last year. I watched her calculate, adding up my success in real time. You can't be here, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. We have legal documents you need to see. He extended the folder toward me. We're filing a lawsuit. You have 24 hours to review our terms before we proceed to court. The folder was heavy in my hands. Professional letterhead. My full legal name, typed across the top. Inside, page after page of dense legal text. Before I tell you what those papers contained, you need to understand how I got here. How a homeless 17-year-old girl became the woman these people thought they could sue, because what they didn't know would destroy them. And I'd been waiting 25 years to watch it happen. The trust fund letter arrived 3 weeks after I gave birth to Madison. I was living in a women's shelter on Pike Street, sleeping on a cot with my daughter in a bassinet beside me. The envelope came forwarded from my old address, marked with my grandmother Helen's law firm letterhead. She died 2 months before I got pregnant, before everything fell apart. Inside was a cashier's check for $15,000. The accompanying letter was dated 6 months before her death, written in her sharp, slanted handwriting. Rebecca, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably in trouble. Your parents don't know about this money. I made sure of that. They've controlled every dollar that's ever come into this family. And I'll be damned if they get their hands on what's yours. I sat on that cot, Madison sleeping against my chest, and read the letter 5 times. Grandmother Helen had been different from my parents. She'd built her own real estate empire in the 70s, buying rundown properties in Capitol Hill before it became expensive. She wore pants to church when other women wouldn't. She divorced my grandfather when I was 6 because he tried to take control of her accounts. Your mother inherited my stubbornness, but none of my sense, the letter continued. She married a man who treats money like power, and she let him. I've watched them squeeze every penny, control every decision. The college fund I set up for you, your father spent it on that boat he never uses. The birthday checks I sent, your mother invested them in her MLM schemes. My hands trembled holding that check. $15,000 was more money than I'd ever seen at once. Here's what you do, Becca, the letter read. I could hear her voice, gravelly from 40 years of smoking. You invest it smart, not in something flashy, something steady, something that grows while nobody's watching. Your parents think money is for showing off, but real wealth? That's quiet, that's patient, and that's powerful. The final paragraph made me cry. They'll try to destroy you for leaving. They'll call you ungrateful, foolish, worthless. Don't believe them. You're the smartest person in this family, and you got that from me. Build something they can't touch. Build something they can't take. And when you're ready, when you're strong enough that nothing they say can hurt you anymore, make sure they know exactly what they threw away. She'd signed it, simply. Love, Grandma Helen. P.S. They'll never see you coming. I deposited that check the next day. Put it in a high-yield savings account where it would earn interest while I figured out my next move. I was 18 years old, had a 2-month-old daughter, and $15,000 that my parents didn't know existed. Grandmother Helen had given me more than money. She'd given me permission to succeed without them, permission to prove them wrong. And most importantly, she'd given me the seed capital to make sure I never needed them again, that I kept her letter in my wallet for 10 years. Every time I doubted myself, I'd read it, they'll never see you coming. She was right. David Chen's office occupied the 42nd floor of Columbia Tower, with windows overlooking Elliott Bay. I'd called him at 7:15 p.m. Tuesday night, 30 minutes after my parents left my doorstep. By 8 a.m. Wednesday, I was sitting across from him with the lawsuit spread between us. They're claiming what? David set down his coffee, staring at the documents, financial support and business ownership. I kept my voice level. They say Washington's filial responsibility laws entitle them to compensation for my upbringing. Their lawyer argues they made an emotional investment that deserves financial return. David flipped through the pages, his expression shifting from disbelief to anger. Rebecca, this is insane. They abandoned you at 17. There's no court in this state that would. They're asking for 35% of my company. I pointed to page 7, plus monthly support payments of $50,000, plus reimbursement for my childhood expenses, which they've calculated at $400,000. He looked up at me. You're remarkably calm about this. I've been preparing for this for years. The statement hung between us. David had been my attorney for 8 years, had helped me negotiate my biggest contracts, knew my business inside out. But he'd never asked about my family, and I'd never volunteered. Preparing how? I knew they'd come eventually. Once the company hit a certain valuation, once my name appeared in enough business journals, once Forbes started calling. I pulled out my own folder, thicker than theirs. I've been documenting everything since I was 22. Every business milestone achieved without them. Every board meeting they knew nothing about. Every success they had no part in. David opened my folder. Inside were bank statements, business licenses, incorporation documents, all showing my maiden name Hart. Not my business name Stevens, my grandmother's surname. They don't even know your company name. He said slowly. They think I run some small tech startup. They have no idea Catalyst Solutions is mine. No idea about the 200 employees, the nationwide contracts, the actual valuation. I leaned forward. David, I don't want to just defend against this lawsuit. I want to destroy it. I want to countersue for harassment, for attempted extortion, for everything we can make stick. He smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Now you're talking my language. But first, we need to know exactly what they know about you, how they found you, what they've been planning. I'm already on it. Linda Okonkwo answered her phone on the second ring. Rebecca, it's been a while. I need your services again. I was in my car, parked in the Columbia Tower garage, speaking through Bluetooth. My parents showed up yesterday. They're suing me. I need to know everything about them, but more importantly, I need to know how much they know about me. Linda had done background checks for me before, vetting potential business partners, investigating competitors. Former FBI, 20 years in the Seattle field office before going private. She was thorough, discreet, and expensive. Send me their information. I'll have preliminary results in 48 hours. She called back in 36. Rebecca, you need to see this in person. Her office was in Pioneer Square, above a coffee shop that had been there since the 90s. I arrived at 2 p.m. Thursday, and Linda had 3 bankers' boxes waiting on her conference table. They've been watching you for 15 years. The words hit me like cold water. What? Your parents hired a private investigation firm in 2010. The firm is called Cascade Investigations, based in Tacoma. Linda opened the first box. These are copies of their reports. Monthly updates from 2010 to present. 15 years of surveillance. Rebecca.my hands went numb. Inside the box were photographs. Me at 27, walking into my first real office space. Me at 30, signing papers at a bank. Me at 33, standing outside the building where Catalyst Solutions now had 3 floors. They documented everything. Linda spread out report after report. Your business milestones, your address changes, your daughter's schools. They knew when you hit your first million. They knew when you expanded to Portland. They knew when Forbes interviewed you last year. Why? The word came out: broken money. They waited until you were rich enough to make a lawsuit worthwhile. Linda pulled out a financial analysis dated from last month. Look at this. Cascade Investigations calculated your net worth at $90 million. They estimated your company's value at $200 million. They even projected your earnings over the next 5 years that I couldn't breathe. They waited. They watched me build everything, and they waited that IT gets worse. Linda opened the second box. Inside were photos of Madison, my daughter at her high school graduation 4 years ago. Madison at the University of Washington campus. Madison at her internship last summer. They have pictures of my daughter. My voice shook. Hundreds of them. Birthday parties you threw for her. Her college acceptance. Her first apartment. Linda's expression was grim. Rebecca, they've been planning this for years. They waited until your company valuation was high enough. Until Madison was an adult, so custody couldn't be an issue. Until you had enough assets to make their lawsuit profitable. I sat down hard in the nearest chair. All those years, I'd thought I was invisible to them. I'd built my success in secret, used my grandmother's name, avoided social media. I'd been so careful, but they've been watching the whole time that there's something else, Linda said quietly. She pulled out a photograph from the third box. It showed me at 17, visibly pregnant, walking out of a food bank on Capitol Hill. They'd even documented my homelessness. These people aren't your parents, Linda said. They're predators who happened to raise you. And they've been hunting you for 15 years. But what I found next shattered everything I thought I knew about who they really were. Friday morning, I sat alone in my office at Catalyst Solutions. Dawn broke over Puget Sound, pink light flooding through the windows. I'd been awake all night, going through the lawsuit documents page by page, looking for anything I'd missed on page 47. Tucked between financial affidavits and property assessments was a photocopy of a birth certificate, my birth certificate. Except it wasn't. The document showed my mother's name, Catherine Monroe, and the father listed as unknown. The date was correct, February 14th, 1983. The hospital was correct, Swedish Medical Center. But the baby's name wasn't Rebecca Monroe. IT was Madison Monroe. I stared at the paper, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Madison. My daughter was named Madison. This certificate said Madison Monroe was born on my birthday. To my mother, father unknown. My hand shook as I pulled up Madison's birth certificate on my laptop. The one I'd gotten at the hospital 25 years ago. Madison Hart, born October 3rd, 2000. Mother, Rebecca Monroe Hart. Father, unknown. 2 birth certificates, both for girls named Madison. Born 17 years apart. I called David Chin. It was 5:47 a.m. He answered, "Anyway, I need you to run a DNA test," I said. Me and Madison. Full panel. Today. Rebecca, what's wrong? Just do it. Please. The lab results came back in 4 hours. They'd rushed it at David's request and his premium fee. I sat in his office at noon, Madison beside me. I'd told her we needed to discuss the lawsuit. I hadn't told her why we needed DNA tests. David handed me the envelope. His face told me everything before I opened it, Madison isn't your daughter, he said quietly. Biologically, you share 25% DNA. You're half-sisters. The room tilted. Madison grabbed my arm. What? That's impossible. Mom, what is he talking about? I couldn't speak. David continued, his voice gentle but firm. The birth certificate in the lawsuit documents wasn't yours, Rebecca. It was for a baby girl named Madison, born February 14th, 1983 to Catherine Monroe. Father unknown. That baby was you. Or rather, that baby was Madison. You are Madison Monroe. Stop. My voice cracked. Stop saying that. Your mother had an affair, David continued. She got pregnant with you. But she was already pregnant, or became pregnant around the same time, with another baby. Rebecca. Her husband's child. You were born the same week. Madison's grip on my arm tightened. Mom, I don't understand. Your mother convinced everyone that you, Madison, were her daughter with her husband, David said. She hid the affair baby by claiming she'd had twins, but only one survived, or she registered the wrong baby, or some story she told. 25 years ago, hospital records weren't digitized. It was easier to manipulate. So I'm not Rebecca. My entire identity was collapsing. My name is Madison. Your legal name is Rebecca because that's what you were called. But biologically, you're Madison Monroe, born from an affair. The baby called Rebecca was your half-sister. Your mother's legitimate child, Madison, stood up abruptly. Then who am I? If she's Madison, who the hell am I? David looked at the DNA results again. You're Rebecca, the biological daughter of Catherine Monroe and her husband, Frank Monroe. You were born October 3rd, 2000. But you weren't born to the woman you call Mom. You were born to your grandmother. The words didn't make sense. That's impossible. I gave birth to her. I was 17. I was there. Your mother gave birth to her, David said. Catherine. She got pregnant again in 2000 at age 42. But she couldn't admit to having another baby, another affair. So she convinced you that you'd given birth. The hospital records show Catherine Monroe as the mother. You were 17, present at the birth, and she told you the baby was yours. Madison's face had gone white. Are you saying my grandmother is my mother? And my mother is my aunt? Half-aunt, David corrected. You share the same mother, different fathers. I thought I might vomit. Every memory of Madison's birth was a lie. The pain I remembered, the exhaustion, holding her for the first time. My mother had given birth, and then handed me the baby, told me she was mine, and I believed it. Why? Madison whispered. Why would she do that? To hide the affair. David's voice was heavy. Both affairs. If people knew Catherine had been pregnant at 17 and again at 42, both with unknown fathers, her perfect Christian image would be destroyed. But if her teenage daughter got pregnant, that could be explained. Controlled. You became the cover story for your mother's mistakes. I stood up, walked to the window. Below, Seattle traffic moved normally. The world continued. But inside this office, everything I'd ever known about myself had been destroyed. They threw me out, I said. They disowned their own biological daughter to protect a secret. Yes, and Madison, the baby they let me take, isn't even mine. She's my half-sister. Yes, Madison's voice came from behind me. So when they threw you out, they threw out the wrong daughter? I should have been the one homeless. The cruelty of it hit me fully. My mother had gotten pregnant from an affair, had passed off that baby as me. 17 years later, she'd done it again, gotten pregnant from another affair, and passed off that baby as mine. Two daughters born from her secrets. And she'd let the wrong one be destroyed. I picked up my phone, called the man I'd always known as my father, Frank Monroe. He answered on the fourth ring. Did you know? I asked. When you threw me out, did you know I was her daughter from an affair? Did you know Madison was your biological child? Silence. Then, quietly, yes, everything made sense now. The coldness, the distance, the ease with which they'd discarded me, that I wasn't their failure. I was their shame, walking and breathing. Proof of my mother's betrayal, and they'd been hunting me for 15 years, waiting to profit from the success I'd built despite them. Madison didn't come home Friday night. Or Saturday. She stayed at her apartment in Capitol Hill, sent one text that said, "I need space," and wouldn't answer my calls. Sunday afternoon, I drove to her building. Used the key she'd given me 2 years ago when she first moved out. I found her on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes, surrounded by tissues and the DNA test results I'd sent via email. "Don't." She held up her hand before I could speak. "Don't say anything yet." I sat in the chair across from her. Waited. My whole life is a lie. Her voice was raw. My name. My identity. Who I thought I was. "You're not my mom. You're my aunt. My grandmother is my mother." "What am I supposed to do with that?" "I didn't know," I said. "Madison, I swear I didn't know until Friday. I thought I gave birth to you. I have memories of it. Fake memories." She laughed bitterly. "She convinced you that you were pregnant, that you gave birth, that I was yours." How did she even do that? I'd spent all weekend reconstructing it. I was 17. She told me I was in labor, took me to the hospital. I remember pain, but maybe that was just panic. She was in the delivery room. A nurse handed me a baby. I was exhausted, confused, and everyone kept congratulating me. So I believed it. And you never questioned it? Never got medical records. I was homeless a week later. Medical records were the last thing on my mind. And by the time I had stability, you were my daughter. Why would I doubt that? Madison pulled her knees to her chest. So she threw you out. Let you take me, her biological child, and just let us go. What kind of person does that? Someone protecting a secret. I moved to sit beside her. She didn't pull away. Someone who valued her reputation more than her children. Children. Plural. Madison's eyes filled with tears. We're sisters. Half-sisters. You raised your own sister as your daughter, and I'd do it again. I took her hand. Biology doesn't change what we are to each other. You're my daughter in every way that matters. She jerked her hand away. Don't make this okay. It's not okay. Nothing about this is okay. The anger hit me like a slap. You think I don't know that? Madison, my entire identity was a lie too. I'm not who I thought I was either, but you're an adult. You've had time to process. I'm 25, and I just found out my whole life is fiction. She stood up, pacing. Everyone who knows me knows a lie. My friends, my boyfriend, my coworkers. They all think I'm Madison Hart, daughter of Rebecca Hart. But I'm not. I'm Madison Monroe, daughter of Catherine Monroe, granddaughter of Catherine Monroe, sister of Rebecca Monroe, who's actually Madison Monroe. Stop. The MY voice came out sharper than intended. Stop letting her win. Madison froze. What? She made us lies. Both of us. She built her perfect life on our backs and threw us away when we threatened it. If you let this destroy who you've become, she wins that I don't care about winning. Madison's voice broke. I care about knowing who I am, that you're Madison. My daughter. The person you've always been. A piece of paper doesn't change that. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, they're suing you. For money. Yes, after everything they did. After the lies, the abandonment, the surveillance. They want your money. Yes, Madison's expression hardened. Something shifted in her eyes. What do we need to do to destroy them? I'm testifying. She picked up her phone. I'm calling that lawyer, David. I'm telling the court exactly what kind of people they are. I'm making sure everyone knows what they did to us. Madison, they don't get to win. Not this time. She looked at me, and I saw myself reflected there. The same determination that had gotten me through homelessness, through building a company, through 25 years of proving them wrong. When's the hearing? 3 weeks. Good. That gives me time to prepare. She pulled me into a hug, fierce and sudden. We're going to bury them, Mom. She still called me Mom, and I knew whatever else changed that wouldn't David's conference room became our war room. Monday morning, we laid out everything: the surveillance reports, the financial records, the birth certificates, the DNA tests. 15 years of evidence that my parents had been watching, waiting, calculating. Here's what we're doing, David said, standing at the whiteboard. We're not just defending against their lawsuit. We're going on offense. Full exposure. He wrote 3 words on the board: surveillance, fraud, abandonment. First, the surveillance. We're subpoenaing Cascade Investigations for all their records. Every report, every photo, every invoice. We're showing the court that your parents hired investigators to track you for 15 years, waiting until you were wealthy enough to make a lawsuit profitable. Linda Okonkwo had already delivered the subpoena. Cascade Investigations had 72 hours to comply. Second, fraud. We're documenting the birth certificate manipulation, the affair, the identity deception. We're showing that everything they built their lives on was a lie. David pointed to the DNA results. These prove Madison isn't your biological daughter. These prove you were the affair baby they hid. Will the judge allow that evidence? I asked. It's not directly related to their lawsuit. IT goes to character. It shows a pattern of deception and manipulation. If they'll lie about something this fundamental, they'll lie about their lawsuit claims. Madison sat beside me taking notes. She'd insisted on being present for every strategy session. Third, abandonment. We have documentation from the shelter where you stayed, pay stubs from the diner, medical records from Madison's birth showing you were a minor. We're proving they threw out a pregnant 17-year-old and never looked back. David pulled up a financial analysis on his laptop. But here's the nail in the coffin. Your parents are broke. He projected their bank statements on the screen. Linda had obtained them through legal channels, showing their financial history over the past decade. They have $47,000 in credit card debt. Their house is mortgaged at 120% of its value. They've borrowed against their retirement accounts twice. They make monthly payments to the country club they can't afford and weekly donations to their church that they put on credit cards. Why? Madison asked. Why live beyond their means like that? Image. Linda's voice came through the conference call speaker. She was at her office, coordinating with forensic accountants. They're maintaining the appearance of wealth while drowning in debt. The country club membership alone costs $20,000 a year. Their church donations last year totaled $38,000. All borrowed money. David nodded. This lawsuit isn't about filial responsibility or emotional investment. It's a cash grab. They're desperate, drowning, and you're their lottery ticket. He pulled up another document. We also found this. An email from your father to their attorney, dated 6 months ago. It says, "How much do you think we can get from her before she fights back? We need at least $2 million to clear our debts and maintain our lifestyle." The words made my stomach turn. $2 million. That was their price tag for 25 years of abandonment. We're not just defending, I said. We're attacking, exactly. David smiled. We're filing a countersuit for emotional distress, harassment, attempted extortion, and fraud. We're asking for punitive damages, and we're requesting a restraining order preventing them from contacting you or Madison ever again. Madison looked up from her notes. When do we go to court? 3 weeks. King County Superior Court. Judge Patricia Nakamura presiding. David closed his laptop. And by the time we're done, your parents will wish they'd stayed hidden. The King County Courthouse gallery was packed. I arrived at 8:30 a.m., an hour before the hearing. Media vans lined 3rd Avenue. Reporters crowded the courthouse steps. The Seattle Times had broken the story 3 days ago. Tech CEO sued by parents who abandoned her at 17. It had gone viral immediately. Inside the courtroom, the gallery filled quickly. I recognized faces from the country club, people who'd known my parents for decades, members from their church. First Presbyterian sat in the back rows. Business journalists had claimed the front seats behind the plaintiff's table. Why parents entered at 8:45, flanked by their attorney, a man named Robert Walsh who specialized in elder law. My mother wore a navy dress suit, pearls, her hair freshly colored. My father had on his best suit, the one he wore to church leadership meetings. They looked dignified, elderly, sympathetic, perfect victims. They didn't look at me as they took their seats. Madison sat beside me, wearing a professional black dress. David sat on my other side, his litigation team behind us. Linda Okonkwo sat in the gallery, ready to testify if needed. Judge Patricia Nakamura entered at 9 o'clock sharp. She was 58, had a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, and didn't tolerate manipulation in her courtroom. This is case number 24, CV 08847, Monroe v. Hart. We're here for preliminary motions and evidence review. Her voice carried authority. Mr. Walsh, you may present your opening statement. Robert Walsh stood, buttoning his suit jacket. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of filial responsibility. My clients, Frank and Catherine Monroe, raised the defendant for 17 years. They provided food, shelter, education, and emotional support. Washington state law recognizes that adult children have an obligation to support their parents in times of need. He gestured to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Monroe are elderly, facing financial hardship. Their daughter has built a successful business worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They're simply asking for what the law allows, modest financial support and recognition of their contribution to her success. Judge Nakamura looked unimpressed. What amount are they seeking? 35% ownership in the defendant's company, plus monthly support payments of $50,000, plus reimbursement of childhood expenses totaling $400,000, the gallery murmured. Even the judge's eyebrows rose. That's modest financial support, she asked, given the defendant's wealth. Yes, Your Honor, M.R. Chin, your response. David stood. Your Honor, this isn't a filial responsibility case. It's attempted extortion. The plaintiffs didn't raise my client. They abandoned her at 17 when she became pregnant. They threw her belongings on the lawn and told her never to return. She was homeless for weeks. They've had no contact with her for 25 years. He paused. Until they discovered how wealthy she'd become. Dio, you have evidence of this abandonment? Substantial evidence, Your Honor. Documentation from women's shelters. Employment records showing she worked while underage to support herself and her infant daughter. Medical records. Witness statements. And most damningly, surveillance records showing the plaintiffs hired private investigators to track my client for 15 years, waiting until her net worth justified this lawsuit. The gallery exploded. Judge Nakamura's gavel cracked down. Order. Mr. Chin, that's a serious allegation that I have the investigators' reports, Your Honor. 15 years of monthly updates. Photos of my client at various stages of her business growth. Financial analyses calculating when she'd be wealthy enough to sue. The plaintiffs treated this like an investment opportunity. Why Mother's face had gone pale. My father leaned over to whisper to Walsh, who looked equally surprised. Your Honor, Walsh stood quickly. This is the first I'm hearing of any surveillance because your clients didn't tell you. David cut him off. They hired Cascade Investigations in 2010 and paid them $60,000 over 15 years to track their daughter. Every business milestone documented. Every address change recorded. They were waiting for the right moment to strike. Judge Nakamura looked at my parents. Is this true? My father stood. Your Honor, we simply wanted to know our daughter was safe. You threw her out at 17 and then hired investigators to watch her build a life without you. The judge's tone had shifted. That's not parental concern, Mr. Monroe. That's stalking. David pressed his advantage. There's more, Your Honor. May I approach with additional evidence? At the judge's nod, David handed her a folder. Birth certificates and DNA test results. The plaintiff's claim to have raised my client is fraudulent. The woman they call their daughter was actually born from Mrs. Monroe's extramarital affair. The child they claim to have emotionally invested in isn't even their legitimate daughter. The courtroom went silent. Judge Nakamura read the documents. Her expression darkened. "Mr. Walsh, did you know about this?" Walsh looked at my parents, who refused to meet his eyes. "No, Your Honor. Mrs. Monroe, is this accurate?" My mother stood, trembling. "That's private family business. It's fraud." The judge's voice was ice. "You're claiming parental rights to a child born from an affair, while abandoning that same child, then stalking her for 15 years to profit from her success. Is that accurate?" Silence. "I'll take that as a yes." Judge Nakamura looked at Madison. "Young woman, are you the daughter mentioned in these documents?" Madison stood. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm Madison. I was raised by Rebecca as her daughter. I just learned last week that I'm actually her half-sister. That Catherine Monroe is my biological mother, not Rebecca. That my entire life has been built on their lie." Her voice didn't shake. "I'd never been more proud." "And they let you be raised in poverty?" the judge asked. "Let you be homeless as an infant?" "Yes, Your Honor. To protect their secret." The judge looked at the gallery. I followed her gaze. Church members were filming on their phones. Country club friends were whispering. Social media was already exploding. I could see people typing frantically. "This is the most unconscionable case I've seen in 20 years on the bench." Judge Nakamura's voice carried through the courtroom. "Mr. and Mrs. Monroe, your lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice. You are ordered to pay all court costs and the defendant's legal fees. Furthermore, I'm granting the countersuit for harassment and emotional distress." Why father stood. "Your Honor, please sit down, Mr. Monroe. I'm issuing a permanent restraining order. You are prohibited from contacting Rebecca Hart or Madison Hart ever again. You are prohibited from discussing them publicly or on social media. Violation will result in contempt charges and possible jail time." She looked at me directly. "Ms. Hart, you've built an extraordinary life despite these people. Don't let them take another moment of it." The gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. I gave one statement, brief and final. "I built my success without them. I'll continue living without them. That's all I have to say." Madison stood beside me, her hand in mine. "Half-sister, daughter, whatever biology said, we were family, the real kind. The kind that shows up. The kind that stays." The Seattle Times headline hit newsstands 6 hours after the hearing. Tech CEO's parents sued daughter they abandoned at 17 court reveals birth certificate fraud. BY Evening, it was everywhere. CNN, Forbes, The Washington Post. Social media exploded with hashtags. Hashtag Rebecca Hart trended nationally for 3 days straight. The story had everything: teenage homelessness, secret surveillance, identity fraud, a 9-figure business empire built from nothing, and parents who'd tracked their abandoned daughter for 15 years, waiting to profit from her success. Public opinion was swift and brutal. First Presbyterian Church issued a statement Tuesday morning. After careful consideration and prayer, the leadership has asked Frank and Catherine Monroe to seek spiritual guidance elsewhere. Their actions are inconsistent with our values of family, honesty, and Christian love. They'd been members for 37 years. My father had served on the finance committee. My mother had led the women's ministry. Now they were being asked to leave quietly before Sunday services. The country club followed Wednesday afternoon. Lakewood Country Club membership is by invitation only and may be revoked at the board's discretion. The Monroe's membership has been terminated effective immediately. $20,000 a year gone. The social network they'd maintained for decades dissolved overnight. Their friends vanished faster. The couples who'd attended their dinner parties, played golf with my father, volunteered with my mother at charity events. All of them stopped returning calls. Social death in real time. My phone started ringing Thursday. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in 25 years, calling to apologize. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. We believed them when they said you'd run away, that you were ungrateful and troubled. We had no idea what really happened. Your mother told everyone you were on drugs, that you'd stolen from them. We should have questioned it. We should have looked for you. I saw you once, at a grocery store when you were maybe 20. You had a baby. I almost said hello, but your mother had said such terrible things. I'm ashamed I didn't trust my instincts one by one. Family members who'd believed my parents' lies reached out. Some wanted forgiveness. Some just wanted me to know they'd been deceived too. I accepted their calls, heard their apologies, but kept my distance. 25 years too late didn't erase 25 years gone. The financial consequences hit hardest. David's legal fees alone cost my parents $83,000. The court ordered them to pay my legal fees too, another $112,000. They didn't have it. Their house went on the market Friday. The 4-bedroom colonial in Bellevue, where I'd grown up, where my suitcase had landed on the front lawn, where they'd built their perfect image, listed at $750,000 with a mortgage of $900,000 they'd borrowed against the house 6 times, refinanced repeatedly to maintain their lifestyle. The sale wouldn't even clear their debts. My father called Saturday morning. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. Rebecca, please. We're losing everything. The house, our savings, our reputation. We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. Please help us. Just enough to get back on our feet that I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. Sunday, my mother sent an email. Subject line, please forgive us. Rebecca, I know we hurt you. I know what we did was wrong. But we're desperate. We have nowhere to go. Can't you find it in your heart to help your mother and father in our time of need? The Bible says to honor thy father and mother, the same Bible she'd ignored when she threw out her pregnant daughter. I marked it as spam and blocked her email address. They'd waited 15 years to profit from my success. They could wait forever for my mercy. Madison started therapy the week after the hearing. Doctor Jennifer Kim specialized in identity issues and family trauma. Madison saw her twice a week initially, then once a week as she processed everything. She says it's normal to feel untethered. Madison told me over dinner one Thursday evening. We'd started having weekly dinners at my place, rebuilding our relationship with honesty instead of lies. That my sense of self was constructed on false information, so now I'm reconstructing it with truth. How does that feel? I asked, terrifying, liberating, both. She pushed pasta around her plate. I spent 25 years being Madison Hart, daughter of Rebecca Hart, granddaughter of no one I knew. Now I'm Madison Monroe, daughter of Catherine Monroe, granddaughter of Catherine Monroe, half-sister of Rebecca Monroe, who's actually Madison Monroe. You can be whoever you want to be. I said gently, did I want to be your daughter? Her eyes filled with tears. Biology doesn't change that you raised me, that you worked double shifts so I could have formula, that you went without so I could have clothes, that you built a company while making sure I never felt poor. You're still my mom. The words broke something open in my chest. You're still my daughter. She reached across the table and took my hand. Dr. Kim says the best families are chosen, not assigned. We chose each other. That counts for more than DNA. 3 weeks later, Madison made a decision that surprised both of us. She wanted to meet her biological father. His name was Daniel Foster, my mother's affair partner from 25 years ago. He'd been a visiting professor at the University of Washington, married with children of his own. The affair had lasted 6 months before his wife discovered it, and they moved to Boston. Linda tracked him down in 3 days. Divorced now, living in Portland, teaching literature at Reed College, Madison called him. I sat beside her while she explained who she was. His shock came through the phone, clearly. Catherine told me she'd terminated the pregnancy. She said it was too complicated, that her husband would find out. I sent her money for the procedure. I never knew. They met for coffee in neutral territory, a Starbucks in Olympia halfway between Seattle and Portland. Madison came back quiet, thoughtful that he's nice, she said. Sad about missing 25 years, but nice. He wants to get to know me. How do you feel about that? Good. Scared, but good. She smiled. I'm building my family my way. You, him, maybe others. The people who actually show up, that's all family should be. 6 weeks after the hearing, my parents tried one final manipulation that a reporter from a local news station called. Ms. Hart, your parents are claiming you've abandoned them in their old age. They say you're wealthy beyond measure while they're being forced into homelessness. Would you like to comment? I'd been waiting for this. The victim narrative. The public sympathy play. Yes, I said. I'll make a statement. Give me 2 hours. I called David. Draft something for me. Professional, factual, devastating. The statement went out at 3 p.m. on my company letterhead. I posted it to LinkedIn, where it would reach the business community. I sent it to every major news outlet. I made sure it would be everywhere. Regarding recent claims by Frank and Catherine Monroe, I was 17 years old when they threw my belongings onto the front lawn and told me never to return. My crime was being pregnant and refusing to give up my child for adoption. They were concerned about their reputation at their country club and church. I spent 3 weeks homeless, sleeping in my car in a Walmart parking lot. I worked while finishing high school online. I raised my daughter without a penny of their support. 25 years later, they hired investigators to track my success. They waited until my company reached a valuation that made a lawsuit profitable. They sued for 35% ownership of a business they had no part in building. Court records show they committed birth certificate fraud. They've been living beyond their means for decades, using credit to maintain an image of wealth. This lawsuit was not about family obligation. It was about money that I built my success despite them, not because of them. I owe them nothing. Not financially, not emotionally, not morally. This will be my only statement on the matter. The post went viral within hours. 50,000 shares by midnight. 100,000 by morning. Interview requests flooded in. 60 Minutes. Good Morning America. The Today Show. I declined them all except one. Forbes, they wanted to do a feature on building success after trauma, on creating empire from nothing, on refusing to let your past define your future. The article ran with my photo on the cover. The headline, Rebecca Hart, the CEO who built a 9-figure empire from a Honda Civic. Inside, they detailed my company's growth, my philanthropic work, and my expansion plans. They also announced my latest project, the Helen Stevens Foundation for Teen Mothers, named after my grandmother, funded with $10 million of my own money. Scholarships, childcare support, business training, housing assistance. Everything I'd needed at 17 and didn't have. My grandmother told me to build something they couldn't touch. I told the Forbes reporter. I built an empire. But more than that, I built a life where their approval means nothing and their presence means less. Madison appeared in the photo with me. She's my daughter, I told them. Biology is just science. Family is who shows up, who stays, who builds with you instead of taking from you. The foundation launched 3 months later. Applications came from across the country. Young mothers who'd been thrown out, cut off, abandoned. I read every one. Some stories mirrored mine so closely it hurt. Others were different, but equally devastating. All of them deserved better than they'd gotten. We accepted our first cohort of 50 women in January. Provided housing, childcare, education funding, business mentorship. By year 2, we'd expanded to 200 women across 5 cities that I hired Madison to run the Seattle location. She'd found her calling in helping others rebuild their identities after family trauma. Why parents never contacted me again after the public statement. The restraining order helped, but I think the social consequences silenced them more effectively than any court order. they sold their house at a loss, moved to a small apartment in Renton. My father got a job managing a storage facility. My mother worked retail at Target. The fall from country club status to hourly wages must have been excruciating. But I felt nothing watching it happen, not satisfaction, not vindication, just nothing. They'd made their choices 25 years ago. Now they were living with the consequences. Meanwhile, I was living my life. A life they had no part in. A life built on my terms, with my rules, surrounded by people I chose. Madison thrived. The foundation grew. My company expanded into international markets. I bought a vacation home on the San Juan Islands where Madison and I spent weekends kayaking and planning the next phase of our lives. 25 years after they threw me out, I'd built everything they said I'd never have. Success, stability, family, peace, and the best part, I'd done it without them. That if you've ever been told you'd amount to nothing, if you've ever been abandoned by the people who were supposed to protect you, if you've ever had to build your life from scratch because the foundation you were given crumbled beneath you, know this. Their limitations are not your destiny. That I was 17, pregnant, homeless, and told I'd ruin my life. I'm 42, a CEO, a mother, a philanthropist, and living proof that their narrative doesn't have to be your reality. You don't owe anyone your success. You don't owe anyone your forgiveness. You don't owe anyone anything except yourself, the chance to become who you were always meant to be. Build your empire. Define your family. Create your peace. And when the people who doubted you come looking for what you've built, remember, you don't owe them a damn thing. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your journey in the comments below. What boundaries have you had to set? What life have you built despite the odds? Share your story. You never know who needs to hear it. This is Alice, reminding you that revenge isn't about destruction. It's about building something so undeniably successful that your existence becomes the answer to everyone who said you'd fail.